Right. So just to be very frank, right? Last year I was here talking about a lot of paid marketing, big budget marketing, and this year when they asked me to come and talk about like, you know, doing marketing with no budget, no spend at all, I was actually trying to like bail out. Like I didn't want to come here and speak because I had no experience of, doing marketing with no budget. Because my previous experience with these companies was actually spending millions of dollars on Facebook ads, on Google search, acquiring users. So very little experience doing zero budget marketing. But then I was thinking like, actually at aCommerce, our current company, we've been doing, free marketing to some extent, right? So a lot of sharing about that today. So as a startup founder, you don't have money, right? But you have something else. You have time, right? So at the early days, Adam Smith, before there was money, before there was like paper money, coins, people actually did barter, right? They did trade. So your most valuable resource is actually this, right? You have a lot of time, right? You may not have money, but you have a lot of time, right? On the other hand, you have a lot of big company CEOs. They have big budgets, but they don't have time, right? So you got to leverage that, right? And assuming also you have knowledge to share. What I'm trying to say here, right? So you have time, you have knowledge. Use the time and knowledge to create great content, right? And use great content to attract traffic, get users, and then generate revenues, right? So what is great content? How do you create great content, right? A couple of ways, right? And I'll show you a couple of examples, right? So thought leadership, right? Assuming you have your expertise, your knowledge, you can actually write about that. Solving customer problems, so you can talk about like social proof, talk about your competitors, or my favorite one is actually talking about like the vanity aspect, right? So talking about like top X founders or people in your market. So here's an example of, for our company, right? So every year, at the end of the year, we do a prediction for e-commerce in 2020, the next year basically, right? So this is our example for TechCrunch that we did last year, 10 trends for Southeast Asian e-commerce in 2016, right? So you write the content, you have a lot of time, you write the content, and then you distribute it to TechCrunch. And then you get a lot of people reading it, you get free backlinks, it helps you with SEO, it helps you with exposure, right? And then you can also do, tech in Asia, of course, right? Writing about like, future of your industry. Right, you can comment on industry trends. So in the e-commerce space, of course, Alibaba recently acquired Lazada. There's a big news, so everybody talks about it, right? So we also wrote an article about, what's the deeper, meaning of Alibaba's acquisition of Lazada. And did anyone read this? Anyone read this? No? Yes? Okay, just a few. Or like the daily social example where we talk about like 11/11, the e-commerce mega sales. The one I like a lot is, the top X founders, because everyone likes to, show off. They like to be in the media, right? So your list of like top 40 on the 40, top 30 on the 30, right? It always hit like the vanity button. People want to be shown. They want to look good, right? And what happens after you publish an article like this is you get the viral sharing. So you get the people on the list talking about themselves, right? Because they're so happy to be like being featured. So here's a Facebook post of like one of the people on the list sharing the article. So this is great content that will go viral because it's actually built in a human nature. They want to show off, they want to share, right? It also drives a lot of discussion. So in the same article, right at the bottom, there's a lot of people commenting because like everyone's like, oh, like you miss out this person should be on the list, this person shouldn't be on the list, right? So there's a lot of discussion, sharing. So this is also something you can use to trigger another like, other people sharing and discussing about it too. And then of course, right, if you're doing an app or website, right, top 10 certain websites, e-commerce websites in Indonesia, for example, right? So these are very easy to create, kind of like BuzzFeed kind of articles, listicles, right? It takes you like, a couple hours to write. You dump it on Tech in Asia, and then it will go viral, right? And then, of course, you put in some backlinks to your site, drop your name, right? Position yourself to look really good versus your competitors, and that's it, right? Very simple. But right? It's not about creating content. So a lot of people think about, oh, content is king, right? I just write a great article, I create a great video, and I just put it there on my blog, and like, my job is done. But actually, content is only one part of the game, right? So if you look at like BuzzFeed, Jonah Peretti, the founder of BuzzFeed, he's very good, not in creating content, but actually in distribution, right? He used Facebook at the very heydays as a distribution channel to basically build his media empire, right? And you guys can use it too. I mean, nowadays, probably not so much using Facebook because your reach is very limited. You have to pay for it, right? But you have other channels that you can use to get distribution, right? So we talked about content, different kinds of content. You have blog posts, you have webinar, you have slide deck, case study, whatever, right? But the most important part is actually distribution side, right? And this is not everything. This is just a couple examples that you can like think of, right? Social media, of course, right? Very easy. You can create an account, you post it, right? But you don't get a lot of reach. Company blog, same thing. You create a blog, WordPress, whatever, dump your content on there. Again, right? You don't get a lot of reach, right? Email newsletter, if you have a database, conference speaking panel, the thing that I'm doing now, right? Or third-party publishers, Tech in Asia, TechCrunch. A lot of reach, right? Very relevant. And then lastly, first-party publisher, creating your own media channel, right? So I'll talk about a little bit more detail, right? That's actually the holy grail of, zero-budget marketing, right? So not all distribution channels are, not all distribution channels are equal. I mean, it's very ironic, right? So I'm standing here, and I'm doing a conference speech, right? But on this chart here, right, conference speaking, it's a very targeted distribution channel, right? Because you guys are all like very relevant audience for what I'm discussing. But the problem is like it's very low skill, right? Of course, there's a lot of people here, but I've been at conferences where there are like 10 people sitting in a room, right? So it's very hard to scale, right? And how often can you do conferences? Not that often, right? So on the other hand, you have third-party publishers. You have TechCrunch, you have Tech in Asia, massive reach, right? But the problem is not very targeted because like have a lot of readers across different categories, right? And then somewhere in between, you have social media, you have company blog, and then the size of the bubble is actually the amount of work required to do it, right? So for conference speaking, right, it's a lot of preparation required, right? I spend a lot of hours like have to do research and create this deck. Traveling to get here, right? So it's not very easy. On the social media, small bubble, it's very easy. You can just like post it every day, but the problem is you don't get a lot of reach if you don't have a lot of following, right? So it's very hard. And then the thing I'm talking about a little bit more is first-party publisher, which is you can get a lot of reach, right, over time, but you can also get a lot of targeting, right? Building your own media channel, right? That's actually the holy grail that you guys need to be aiming for. Because once you grow it, it can actually go into that corner where it's like both targeted and you have skill. It's very easy to scale, right? So why your own channel, right? You get skill, you get targeting. And also I'll go into more detail is like there's a unique opportunity for this kind of model here in Indonesia, in Southeast Asia, not just for content marketing, but also to build your own business. It's not just brand awareness, right? If you have an article on TechCrunch, it's great for brand awareness, you get backlinks, but the problem is like, like it's not your own platform, so you cannot easily acquire users, right, and generate, turn them into customers. But you can have data here, right? So once you have your own platform, you have data, you have people visiting your site, consuming your content, you have a lot of data, and then also the beauty of it, you can also monetize it, right? You can sell ads against it, you can sell, other products against it, make money, and use that for paid marketing. Internet penetration in Indonesia, Thailand, China, and the US, right? So, I mean, the takeaway of this slide, if it shows up, right? It's actually, internet didn't become like mass in Indonesia until, kind of like Web 2.0 when Facebook started becoming really big, right? So as a result, look at this as a publisher, like kind of like a ecosystem, right? So on the left hand, you have like the big head, right? You have the big head of like, the TIG, you have Cuscus, then you have, of course, Facebook, Instagram, right? But then on the other hand, right, the long tail, you have nothing, right? Unlike the US, where you have a lot of people blogging starting early 2000s, late 90s, right? Creating content on their own platforms, right? We don't have that here, right? And you can see that from here. On the left hand, you have US examples in the different categories of content, right? So you have a lot of people like in fashion, in beauty, in tech, in general. But then on the right hand side, you don't have a lot of in Indonesia, right? It's very sparse, and that's why like a lot of startups too are going into the media space, creating content, right, and basically leveraging the opportunity here, right? So this is a famous picture, um, how Craigslist is being kind of like dismantled, being unbundled, right? Because they're not innovating. It still looks like the UX is like shit, right? So Airbnb is taking customers away. Like you got like Etsy taking customers away, right? So what I created for you guys is this, right? So Cuscus here is also being unbundled in Indonesia, right? So Cuscus originally, they own everything, right? They have all the media, all the content, all the discussion, right? All the users. And slowly over time, like you got all these new startups, media startups chipping away at Cuscus and taking the users away, going into the verticals, right? So this is happening right now, right? And there's still a lot of opportunity here, right? So you have a lot of brands, businesses that actually use this model to acquire users, right? So they create their own media channel. First-party publisher, Makeup.com is actually owned by L'Oreal. They use it to generate traffic and sell makeup, right? And also for branding, right? Babbel, owned by Disney, right? For parenting, for babies, right? Generating traffic through content that they write about the topic, and then driving it to acquire customers. And then on the B2B side, you have CMO.com, which is owned by Adobe, which is targeting marketers and selling Adobe products, basically, right? And then you have Indonesia, a couple examples of businesses that are doing this. Orami trying to create their own magazine, but it's still a little bit of a blog, and it's still not like super high priority. So they're just posting content and not getting a lot of traffic, right? And then in the middle you have like Fabelio, you have like the furniture design side also creating a blog, right? But the moment as a user you go to these sites and you look at the blog and like, oh, it's part of a website where they sell products, then you don't want to read it anymore because it's like a hard sell, right? So you want to separate it into a different platform and create your own media play. And then on the healthcare space, you have HelloDoc, also a blog, which is probably not the right approach here. Right, so I show you a case study of aCommerce, right? So we started in 2013, no budget, right, and doing mainly branding and awareness because like we're raising money, trying to get on the radar for investors. So doing a lot of PR and events, but the last few years we shifted towards more B2B demand gen, customer acquisition. Still very limited budget, limited to zero, but the focus on more content marketing because it's more scalable. So here's an example of like our first ever TechCrunch article, which is when we raised our Series A, and you see Hariwinas of Matahari Mall still with us here, right? So we had a TechCrunch article doing a lot of PR, and then we also did a lot of, as a starting brand, you don't have brand awareness. So Line is a huge brand. So we did a partnership with Line, and we basically position ourselves as a partner of Line, and even to the extent of like, the brown icon here, actually, I photoshopped the aCommerce logo on the hat, right, without approval of Line, but it went out, and everyone started to say, oh, aCommerce, like it's a partner of Line, so like it increases your brand value, right? And then, oh, wait. Right, so back to this one, right? So, and then back in the early days, as we were building out our brand, like we were taking like any speaking opportunity as they came. So I was spending a lot of time going to, really shitty conferences. So this one was in Shanghai, and I showed up, and you pay $1,000 for a ticket, hotel, you go there, and then there's like 10 people in the room, right? So, and I was like, wait, I wasted all this money, so how can we maximize this, right? So out of the deck that I created, and out of the, the presentation, we created a TechCrunch article, right? So you write it into an article, so it becomes more scalable. You publish it, and then people start reading it, right? So, and this is one of our first, actually our second article on TechCrunch. More content, less PR, right? And then the same thing happened again, right? So another conference here on, mobile or something, right? And also pretty much a waste of time and money. But again, we turn it into another TechCrunch article, right? So and then it goes, you spread it, you get the scale, you get the branding of TechCrunch, right? Which in the end actually resulted in much higher return on investment for our PR efforts here, right? And then, of course, over time, you get other people picking up. If you have good content, right, you will actually end up on the radar of like investors, like, for example, like Kleiner Perkins, that basically took our content and put it in their Internet Trends of 2016 report that they publish every year, right? So one page is actually aCommerce content. Right? And then another trick here for you guys to remember is you create an original article, right? You spend a lot of time writing an article. Here, Alibaba's told you know is for Southeast Asia. Read it if you haven't read it, right? So what we do, we create a translation, right? We localize it, and then we do syndication, right? So we put it into Thai tech media here, and then we also syndicate it into Bahasa on Daily Social, which I hope you guys have read it, right? So you do the work one time, but you reuse it multiple times so you can get skill, right? And then from a higher level point of view, right? So at aCommerce, we have our own media property. We have our media portal that talks about e-commerce, logistics in Southeast Asia. It's called eCommerce IQ, right? In the middle, we have our business aCommerce website where we do the B2B lead gen, right? Convert all the traffic into customers, and then we generate leads and eventually revenues. Right? So eCommerce IQ is not just content, right? We also sell advertising. We get advertising money, which we then use for the business in different channels like paid marketing, Facebook ads, retargeting, whatever, right? Or creating even more content. So you can do the same thing. You create your content, use the content to not just for content marketing, but also to generate revenues, right? And then we use it for B2B marketing at aCommerce. Oh. So here's an example, right? First-party publisher, eCommerceIQ.Asia, long-form articles, events, workshops, infographics, everything we do on the site, data too. Right, and here's an example of like people reading our content, consuming our content, and emailing us like, hey, like I saw this, and then eventually they turn into a customer, right? So this is Luxottica emailing us. They read our, landscape article, and they emailed us like, hey, I'm really interested in this, like, let's work together. Right, and traffic-wise, 30,000 page views a month, right? Not a lot, but we just started, right? But remember, this is very targeted traffic, right? It's very specific e-commerce decision makers that we're targeting, right? It's not like, million page views of like generic people. And then we also localize a website, right? So our new website is not only in English, but also in Bahasa, in Thai, and also Chinese for strategic reasons because we have a lot of incoming cross-border demand coming from China, Taiwan, and Hong Kong. Also investors from China looking at our product, right? So we have a Chinese website, and that's also something for you guys to consider if you're looking for, beyond Indonesia. Right? And lastly, paid marketing can be free too, right? So it's not just about, content marketing, writing articles, right? You can also buy ads on Facebook, and it can be, quote unquote free. Because why, right? You can get arbitrage, right? Like in this movie here, The Big Short. So what you do, it looks different from the one I created. But anyway, right, so a lot of times you guys look at the cost side, right? So you spend marketing on Facebook, you buy ads, and you think, oh, it costs money. But you need to keep in mind, right, what's the revenue side? If your revenue side, your LTV, lifetime value, is higher than cost side, right, you're actually printing money. It's actually free, right? So once you get to that equation, right, you're basically doing paid marketing at zero cost, right, generating revenues for your business, right? So paid marketing can be free too. So key takeaways before we wrap up, right? You have a lot of time, right? Start writing, right? You have no excuses not to write as a founder, right? You can write on weekends, you can write in evenings, you can write on holidays, right? It's very easy to do. Not just creating content, but think about how you distribute it, right? When I write an article, before writing it, I think about what's the distribution strategy, right? If I write this article, who's the audience, and how am I going to reach the audience? Am I going to use TechCrunch? Am I going to use Tech in Asia? Am I going to use my own site, email, whatever channel, right? Think about it when you write your article. And then, of course, scaling, because writing is very time-consuming, right? So you want to get the max out of your writing. So localization, translation, syndication, reusing content from conferences, from case studies, white papers, whatever you can to scale your content. And then, of course, first party is a very unique opportunity here in Indonesia, right? We saw how Cascos is being dismantled by all these smaller media players that are up and coming. You guys can do the same thing. And of course, paid marketing can be free too, right? Oh, so a couple recommended readings before we leave, right? So one, Content Marketing for Startups, YouTube video by Susan Su, 500 Startups, very good, right? So save it, take a picture, read it, right? Listen to it. Then you have Priceonomics, Content Marketing Handbook, right? Highly recommended reading material, right? Beyond just content marketing, but just marketing strategy in general, right? Read it, right? It's very good. It's free too. And then you have a book, audiobook called Trust Me, I'm Lying, right? Ryan Holiday on PR, on content marketing, on positioning, highly recommended, right? His other books are all like crap, but this one is really good, right? And then lastly, you have a YouTube video by Google Ventures, Product Marketing for Startups. It's very good too. Also highly recommended. Watch the video. It talks about like how do you position your product and how do you do PR, how do you do paid marketing, how do you do B2B marketing, and a lot of it's actually content marketing. That's it. Thank you so much.
So give it up for him. So I'll ask some questions then for you. Once you make that articles on maybe TechCrunch, right?
Yeah.
What are some what did you get out of it? Like, how did you gather? We get this much out of this. This is why it's successful. How do you know it's successful when you put it on TechCrunch?
It's very hard to measure on third-party media. I mean, the way we measure is less, you can measure page views, whatever, because it's not your own platform, right?
Right.
But we get a lot of feedback of like whenever we talk to clients, potential clients, to people in the industry. They all mention like, hey, I read this article, like I'm very interested in working with you guys, right? So it's not just customer acquisition, it helps with everything, right? If you have good PR, it helps with fundraising, right? It helps with, recruiting talent because people are more likely to work with you, right? It's good in retaining talent and of course acquiring customers to generate revenues.
Very nice. So thank you everyone for coming. Thank you again to Sheji Ho for giving us all this important information. I took so much notes, so thank you very much. And that wraps up for the marketing stage for today. Thank you everyone for coming. And tomorrow we're going to have another stage here called the revenue stage. So it's similar to marketing where we're thinking about money and how to grow our company, right? Because that's the goal, is money. So thank you everyone.